Hey, so I'm starting a new series on startups and like the general theory of startups. Just teaching about startup strategy and theory, but also basically running a company through these processes. Um, so like you'll hear the general theories, but then you'll also see like the special instance, one special instance of it, which is the company I'll be running, Autonomous Health. And you'll just see like these general principles applied in practice, and maybe I'll post week to week, hopefully for years, so if it becomes a big company you can get the bird's eye view or like the ground troops view along the way, which I think will be cool. By the way, like every video will be accompanied by some article which will be much more concise. And these videos are sort of me just kind of blabbering and thinking aloud, and maybe there's more information, but the density of information per unit time will be a little less, and but there will be more side notes which might be interesting and useful, and I guess it won't always match one-to-one, but okay. So in this first video I was thinking I would just give like a broad overview of startup theory, like everything that I know from all the books I've read and running previous businesses, and like the things I've picked up and learned, and like articles I read and stuff. So I'll give you the general theory, and then in the coming videos and articles we'll apply each of these general ideas in the very minute to the week by week running company. Okay, so I guess a good place to start is in 2004, which is basically when startup theory emerged. So this guy named Steve Blank, who now teaches a class at Stanford, has been teaching for a while now, wrote this book called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, and he had been in like 8 startups over the previous decades, and he realized that a lot of people running companies, like the MBA types and stuff, they would treat startups the same way that they would treat regular companies, like regular large companies, where you can forecast like revenue, you can forecast like things you're gonna do, and like you can hire and fire people based on whether these revenue targets are met and stuff. Like it's a very predictable world because all these assumptions, like who the customer is and what they want and like how much they'll pay and stuff like that, is all kind of known. And so they were applying this kind of practice where some team writes a business plan, 30-page business plan, submits it to investors. The investors are like, okay, great. And then they build in like stealth mode for like months or years, and then they launch. And then no one buys the fucking product because the assumptions were wrong. And they were wrong because the business plan assumptions were wrong because all those things were not known. And so there's like failure after failure after failure, and companies still do this today, where they kind of build in stealth for months or years and then launch, making all these assumptions previously that customers are going to want this thing and they're going to pay for it and they have this problem and you can reach them through these channels profitably, et cetera, and then they're just wrong and then the business plummets. And so Steve Blank basically said that a startup is not a smaller version of a large company. Instead, it's a fundamentally different entity. And specifically, a company basically executes a known working business model, whereas a startup is in search of one. It's in search of a repeatable, profitable, scalable business model. And so the job of the entrepreneur is to systematically go through each of the business model assumptions and systematically validate them, like to turn assumption to fact. And then once this whole set of business model assumptions results in a repeatable, profitable, scalable business model, then the startup no longer exists, like it ceases to exist, the search is over, it transforms into a company that now executes a known working business model. And so that's like the fundamental ideas that Steve Blank introduced. And he developed this process called customer development, which is just like some method of validating these assumptions and like having lots of customer engagement and not building in stealth and stuff like that. And we won't talk about customer development too much, because I think there's better search processes that have been invented since, but he definitely laid the groundwork. So in like 2005, Steve Blank invested in this company called InView, where Eric Ries, who later wrote the Lean Startup, was a co-founder. And Steve Blank, funny enough, made the co-founder sit in his class teaching customer development. And since Eric Ries had like a prior failure in startups where he had built in stealth and then launched and failed, and then he worked at a startup where they built in stealth for years, they launched and then failed, exactly the same thing. And he was like, holy crap, he became an early evangelist, Steve Blank uses that term, of the customer development process, which is just like, instead of thinking of product development, you're thinking of customer development. It's basically validating these business model assumptions. And so over the years, like running InView, he would like merge customer development and agile development, which basically is like a more refined process of building, but like Eric says, it like minimizes waste, but doesn't minimize the biggest waste of all, which is building something that no one wants. And so he basically was merging customer development and agile development into this work that he started to call the Lean Startup. And it was borrowing principles that he couldn't quite articulate. And then later he started reading about lean manufacturing, and all of those principles from lean manufacturing translated over. And so that's why he started calling it Lean Startup. So he basically merged these three disciplines into the body of work called the Lean Startup, which I think he wrote in 2012 or something. And he started a blog. It's called Startup Lessons Learned. There's some really good articles on there. And he would like write about these ideas, and he would like go give talks, and people would be like, that doesn't work. Like that would never work, right? Because they're on the MBA mindset. And then he was like, I was there. Like, I'm not lying to you. I was there. And so he would just eventually talk to the people who would like, so he started the blog. He was like, read these articles. If you want me to come talk, if you're okay with the stuff in these articles, then I'll come by. So he would talk to whoever would listen. He would iterate and refine and read more, and he would get challenged on stuff, and he would like keep iterating on this body of knowledge, and then eventually publish the work, which like basically changed the game startup wise. And that basically started the Lean Startup movement, which is basically what everyone now thinks of, and it's like the most popular body of knowledge. There's like Paul Graham stuff, but that's like tangential, and there's overlap. Like it's good when, it's cool when like different people independently discover the same information, because then you know that there's probably some fundamental thing that's true. And that typically results when certain people are noticing patterns amongst many special instances, and then they can generalize to the general theory, and then the general theories match across disciplines independently discovered. Yeah, that's how you know when you're coming across truth. Anyway, so in the Lean Startup, basically what Eric, like the novel methods that he introduces is how you should go about validating business model assumptions. And by the way, like one way of thinking of business model assumptions, there's this thing called the business model canvas, developed by Alexander Osterwalder, something like that, in a book called Business Model Generation, which you can like read the first couple pages, it's pretty good. And in Steve Blank's second book, The Startup Owner's Manual, he refers to it because it hadn't been developed by the first one. And so it's this visual representation of what a business model is. And there's like different boxes for different business model assumptions, like channels and customers and problems and solutions and revenue streams and cost structures and stuff like that. And so basically all the assumptions that you need to validate are on this one page. And so instead of having this 30-page business plan, you just have this one-page visual guide. And you don't want to spend too much time writing a business plan anyway. One, it's a waste, and then two, it's like all these assumptions are probably going to be wrong. Like your initial predictions tend to crumble upon first contact with customers. So it's like better to do it quick. So some of these assumptions are like who the customer is, like what are like these early adopter criteria, like the channels you're going to use to reach them, whether you can properly reach them, their problems, like existing alternatives that they've had, and like, yeah, revenue, cost structure, all that stuff. So, and you can like look up example business model canvases of other companies like Starbucks and Airbnb and all this stuff, and just kind of just to like get the juices flowing. So anyway, so basically, so you write down all these assumptions on day one on this canvas. And then, so Eric introduced the process by which you use to validate these assumptions. And that's basically a scientific method. And it's kind of a shame, like over and over and over, like it shouldn't be novel. Like using the scientific method should not be a novel discovery, because whenever you tell someone what the scientific method is, they're like, obviously I know that, like I do that all the time. But then like field after field after field, people are not using that. And then someone introduces the scientific method into that field and then revolutionizes the field. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so his that was his contribution. So basically you take one of these assumptions and you start with the riskiest ones, like whatever you find to be the riskiest, and you first create some like testable hypothesis, some precise within a given time frame, something that makes predictions. So like we will acquire this many customers through this channel, stuff like that, or like the conversion rate from this step to this one will be so and so, and like that is one of the business model assumptions on the canvas. Whether your solution solves their problem, right? If they're signing up to try your product, that's basically validating that assumption, whether the proposed solution solves that problem, for example. And so anyway, so you say like this conversion rate or this many or this volume, whatever. So you make some precise testable hypothesis, and then you design some experiment to test it. And that's where the MVP comes in, the minimum viable product. And like people tend to get that wrong. Like the point of the lean startup is not let's get something early and buggy out there quickly and iterate. That's not the point. The point is you just want to test business model assumptions, and a method of doing that is by putting out some minimal thing. So like a very common example is like people will build a product and then try to drive traffic over, right? And like in the lean startup, Eric talks about this case where he like spent 6 months building this thing because they thought like they had this assumption that people used products in a certain way, and like there would be this strategic advantage of network effects. So he spent 6 months building this thing, and then when they finally like launched, no one was using it, no one was signing up to try it, no one was downloading the product. And then when they would bring people in, and the way that they were bringing people in, they were, I think, running ads on Craigslist, like targeting basically their customer segment and bringing them in for usability tests. Anyway, so, and then they would be like, I'm not going to use that thing. And then after a while of person after person after person, they're like, holy shit, this thing that I spent 6 months on it was complete waste. And so instead of building product first, you could build like a landing page, right? Or just something, and see if after driving traffic, people are willing to try this thing that you've described, right? Because that's going to happen first anyway, before you actually get to using the product, right? So you should build that first, because if people aren't signing up, then you can iterate quickly on that little demo. Anyway, so that's an example of an MVP, right? It's some minimal viable experiment to test a certain business model assumption. And you just keep repeating these different small experiments to test these different assumptions. And then once like an experiment seems to have validated an assumption, you just like keep that going, which is like, anyway. Okay, so going back to the scientific method for how you go about validating business model assumptions. So you hypothesize, you build some little thing, that's the experiment, and then you measure. And the measure step is pretty profound, actually. So I think this borrows a lot from Agile development, but people will tend to like measure gross numbers, like gross volume, like gross number of users, and like basically all these kinds of metrics that might have been influenced by work that you did 6 months ago, right? Not from work that you're doing now. So basically the way to know that these results are resulting from work that you're doing, you can run A/B tests. There's this thing called cohort analysis, where you basically split users into cohorts, like you go week by week, month by month, and then you can measure conversion rates across important steps that like across the customer journey, and see if they're improving week to week or month to month based on your product development efforts. So like different cohorts, you're seeing different versions of the product, and you're seeing if the more recent versions are improving. And he calls this body of work, or like this body of measuring, innovation accounting. Great chapter. It's a phenomenal chapter. And so then so after measuring, you basically iterate. So you then see if your hypothesis matches the experiment's results. And if it does, great. That never happens. It never happens. But if it does, you move on to the next assumption. If it doesn't, then you iterate. You like make tweaks to the experiments. Like this could be changing copy or changing like maybe what the problem, like the kinds of problems that you think people are having and all that stuff. And then you can like improve you can like improve that process by talking to customers, right? Rather, like it is a multivariable problem. Like if like, for example, you're testing whether your proposed solution solves a person's problem, and you have like this landing page and you like describe all this stuff, like, and people aren't signing up, or the conversion rate is lower than what you hypothesized. Sorry. As you can tell, this is like a rough form of media here. But anyway, so if people are not acting in the way that you hypothesized, then it's a multivariable problem, right? It could be like the copy, it could be like the images, it could be like, I don't know, the sign-up form or whatever. There's all these things that you could change, and you could spend a while changing this stuff, or you could just talk to people. And so talking to people is pretty useful. Anyway, so these are like a little more tactical and specific, and we'll get there. But so back to the general thing. So you basically iterate on these hypotheses, if they're wrong, and then if despite many iterations you're still not basically having the experiments match your hypotheses, which is important, right? Your hypotheses is determining whether you have a business model that makes you money, right? You're like the big assumptions are like, this business is going to make X amount of dollars through like Y volume of customers, right? And like, if it doesn't, then I shouldn't be working on this. Like, if this thing is not making much money, I shouldn't be working on this business, right? So those business model hypotheses are important. And so if your experiments are not matching those hypotheses, then despite many iterations, and one way of measuring this is you could do cohort analysis week to week, month to month, and after like, let's say 3 months, you're getting these diminishing returns to improvements in these conversion rates across the funnel, then it's time to pivot. And a pivot is like a very fundamental shift of one of the like core components of the business model. Okay, so, and then there's like this, and then like part 3 is like about lean manufacturing, and it's like definitely very valuable. But we'll just skip over that because we're gonna come back to stuff like that. Like that's kind of embedded throughout everything. Okay, so that's basically the lean startup. And then in 2012, but most recently in 2023, the greatest book of all time on startup theory was written by a guy named Ash Maurya. It's called Running Lean, 3rd edition. Very important that you read the 3rd edition and not previous ones, because it was a complete rewrite. And by the way, like, if you read only one book, read Running Lean, 3rd edition by Ash Maurya. If you're going to read mini books, then this would be, I think, my ideal order. Like, read a little bit of Business Model Generation, read like a few chapters of the 4 Steps to Epiphany, read just like maybe 2 or 3 chapters of the Startup Owner's Manual, and then read the Lean Startup. Read probably Traction by Gabe Weinberg. That's like kind of good. You don't have to read the whole thing, but like read maybe 8 chapters, something like that. at least 5. And then probably read Running Lean. And I know it's like the most important and we're putting it last, but it just feels like I think you kind of need that order. And then if you're gonna do like customer conversations, then read like the Mom Test, and I don't know, there's other decent books. Anyway, so Running Lean, 30 Minutes from my Ash Maurya. Basically, that book takes the lean startup. It takes like all existing startup literature, and I think the contribution that it provides is the order of business model assumptions that you should test. Like Eric basically gives you the process for performing it, and basically tells you just take the riskiest ones. But Ash sort of tells you the order in which you should validate business model assumptions, which is important. And he introduces this idea called problem solution fit, which is probably like the single most like time-saving, like success increasing thing you could possibly do in a startup. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so there's this idea called product market fit that people is basically like the goal of a startup to get to product market fit, and there's like no precise definition of it. One probably good definition to think of is that you have a repeatable, profitable, scalable business model, and like all the business model assumptions have been validated, and you no longer are a startup, you become a company and you execute this good business model. So that's like one definition of product market fit. And then another one, like I remember, whatever, it doesn't matter. So point is, like, it takes like 2 years to get to product market fit, roughly, or more. And so if you're like in a startup trying to get product market fit, like there's like so many components involved that the cycle time, like if you fail, the cycle time to starting another company is so long, right? And like basically startups is like, it's like about anti-fragility, right? It's like a barbell anti-fragility solution. Like you're doing a bunch of things where it's like you have a bunch of capped downside experiments, like small capped downside, right? And unlimited upside, uncapped upside, right? It's very asymmetric, it's convex. And so like really startups is like, you're less so thinking about each of the special instances, and you're thinking more about this class of activities that you're doing, all these like cap downside experiments where any of them might give you asymmetric returns. And what you're inviting is time and volatility, because those are the things that allow these experiments to like reach unlimited maxes. So like your first startup probably will fail, right? Like there's 90% failure rates, right? But that assumes like they're not using a good process. I wonder what the process is like. I wonder what the success rates are when people use good processes, but like these ones don't tell me. But in that case, like you probably will fail. And so it's shitty if the cycle time to a failure is 2 years, right? And like if 1 in 10 succeeds, like that sucks, right? That's 20 years. And so instead, Ash introduces this concept called problem solution fit, which you can get to in like 3 months or 6 months. And the success rate to getting there is like marginally higher, but because the cycle time is lower, you have a lot more opportunity to win, basically, for your, all you basically need to do as like a startup founder is to have enough space to explore, like on the explore exploit problem, where you have enough like time, like you have enough money in the bank, enough runway, like to buy enough time to perform all these cap downside experiments, so that time and volatility will eventually get one of them to explode. And like you accelerate the process by adding theory, like stuff like this. And so you have enough runway, and then you do all these low cycle time experiments trying to get to this thing called problem solution fit. And if you get to problem solution fit, the probability that you get to product market fit is like much higher, like 50% or something. So it's like it's brilliant, honestly. Like as I was shitting my pants when I was reading that book. Anyway, so basically what problem solution fit is like you validate that people want the solution, that people want a solution before you've even built it. And the way that you validate this is like through pre-orders or like a sufficient number of signups, and like this sufficient number you can like precisely calculate based on your business model assumptions. And he gives all these like business modeling tools, and we're gonna cover all of that in actually the next video. So you can precisely calculate how many pre-orders and like signups you need, or like free trial signups you need to establish problem solution fit. And which is, you're giving a demo of what you're going to build, and people are buying this demo or like committing some sort of like something of value to them, like time or like whatever, to try this thing. And then you build it, and you do not build it until you get to that point. And the reason why that's so valuable is because building takes a lot of time, right? Suppose like most people like go through this process where they build a bunch of shit, and then they try to see if they can get signups and stuff like that. And then if it doesn't work, then they build another thing. And like Levels.io is a good example. And then like, I think he has this post where his success rate is like 4%, right? And the cycle times are so long. And like you can build fast, but what if you didn't have to build anything and you just have these landing pages where you're describing what you're going to do, right? Because then if people aren't signing up and stuff, then you just iterate on a demo instead of iterating on a product. Like how much faster is it to iterate on a demo? You're just like changing screenshots like in Figma, or like freaking GPT now generating like images and just like copy and stuff like that, rather than iterating a product, which like takes a lot more time. Like you might say, shit, people, like we're not making enough money because the product sucks, so I have to spend more time making the product better. And that just takes longer. Whereas if you can iterate on demo, it's much better. So demo, sell, build instead of build, demo, sell, right? That's a good mantra. Demo, sell, build instead of build, demo, sell. And so if you do get to problem solution fit, then like that's a huge milestone. Now you just like spend a month building the thing, you deliver it to the users that pre-ordered, and then you keep bringing new customers through the flywheel and iterating on product, and then try to get to product market fit. So basically the goal is to get to problem solution fit, which is like a 3-month and then at worst 6-month mark. So that's like one main contribution, this problem solution fit that Ash provided. And then the other one is like the order in which you validate business model assumptions. And then this is kind of like so far stuff I've talked about has been like other people's work. Like some of the stuff I'm about to talk about is like extensions that I have added to Ash's work. So there's this thing called the funnel. Every business has a funnel, but there's a common funnel that most startups use. It's called the Pirate Metrics R funnel, AARRR, and they're called Pirate Metrics because R is like something pirates like to say. So, and like these things stand for acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. And basically every business has each of these things. So you can think of acquisition. And so, you can think of acquisition as bringing a customer to your site, or a person walking through your flower shop, or, whatever. Basically an unaware visitor coming into contact with you. Some people define it as getting their contact information, or like doing anything but leaving the site or leaving the store or whatever. I think that should have its own name in the funnel. So I introduced like this registration step when I draw my funnel. But anyway, it doesn't matter. And then the next thing is like activation, which is like some value that the customer receives. Retention is obvious, they keep coming back. Revenue, they pay you. Referral, they recommend other people. So every business has these things, but the order might change. Like for example, an e-commerce company, a customer might buy something before they are using it. Whereas a software company, you're using it like free trial, before you buy it, or like a premium model or something, or a freemium model. But basically every business has this. And so the ideal way, so along this funnel is baked into this funnel are business model assumptions, right? So like baked into the like the activation or like the registration step where they say like, hey, I'm gonna use your shit, or like I'd like to sign up to use your stuff or to try your stuff. Baked into that is the assumption, or is the validation of the assumption, that your proposed solution solves their problem, right? Which is one of the business model canvases, right? And then like the revenue step, baked into that is obviously the revenue streams, and then a whole bunch of assumptions prior to it, which is like that you can acquire a customer, like you can acquire your target customer through some channel, that customer has a certain problem, that person believes that your proposed solution will solve that problem, that solution actually is solving their problem, and then the revenue streams, right? So like the business model canvas is sort of like it's drawn statically, but you can think of it as temporally. And so one way of like re-representing the business model canvas is through the funnel. And so you can just sort of walk along the funnel, and if you're getting people from the first step all the way to the end, you're implicitly validating business model assumptions along the way. And the insight is that the best way, or the best order of validating business model assumptions, is along the funnel. Okay, so basically I should throw up the business model canvas somewhere on here, overlay it over me, but or you should just Google it if I didn't do that. So basically the first, okay, so at the beginning, your customer base, as an overview of like this next section, it'll be brief, I promise, is going to be the terms that we're going to use for certain business model assumption validations. And so we already talked about problem solution fit, just somewhere in the middle, and then product market fit is that we've solved everything. Before that, I like invented this term, so channel customer fit, and then the rest of these are ashes. So first channel customer fit, then customer problem fit, problem solution fit, product market fit. And so in the beginning, all of your customers are going to be early adopters. And an early adopter is someone that, there's lots of definitions that are all kind of equivalent. First, the reason why you have early adopters as your initial customer set is because in the beginning, your product is going to be not complete, and only early adopters are going to accept a non-complete product. Like, you could build a complete product. You could spend 6 months or a year building a complete product that's ready for mainstream customers, but there's a good chance that after a year you built something that no one fucking wants, and then all that time was a waste, right? So you want to build iteratively with your customers, and if you're going through that process, you're not going to have a complete thing, and so you're going to have to build something, or you're going to have early adopters as a customer base, because those are the only people that will want to use your half-baked or like half-complete thing. And so when early adopter is, I think there's two good definitions. So one is ashes, which is they're people that use existing alternatives. And so I like thinking that early adopters EA, and existing alternatives is also acronym is EA. So they're people that use existing alternatives. So they're people that pay or spend time on some alternative thing that solves that underlying problem that you're trying to tackle. And either they're unsatisfied with that existing alternative, or they're satisfied, but they don't realize that you're gonna, fucking, wreck the market with an amazing new thing, disrupt the market, whatever, blah, blah. But point is, like, they're using existing alternatives. And And he has a section in the book, and it's like fundamentally about switching triggers, like whatever. I'll let you read it. It's good. So the other definition, which I think is even more important, is Steve Blank's, and this is in 4 Steps to the Epiphany. So there's this 5-scale problem, like 5-step problem scale of like where any person can fit into. So problem scale 0 is like they don't have the problem that you're trying to solve. Problem scale 1 is they have it but they don't know it. Problem scale 2, they have it, they know it but they don't care. Problem scale 3, they have it, they know it, they care, and they know what a solution might look like to solve that problem, but they haven't done any work to like actually solve that problem. And then problem scale 4 is all of those things, and they've duct taped a solution to solve that problem. And I like to add this because it's freaking hilarious, but in the B2C case, this duct taping is like they duct taped a vacuum and a light bulb and a fork together to solve their problem, right? And then problem scale 5 is all of problem scale 4, plus they're willing to give you money right now. And like those 5 things sort of translate to like the technology adoption lifecycle, which is like if crossing the chasm, like there's early adopters, there's mainstream customers, there's laggards and stuff like that. So like 4 and 5, problem scale 4 and 5 are like early adopters, problem scale 3 is like mainstream, and then the others are like customers you're not gonna get for many years. So basically you're looking for problem scale 4 and 5 people, which are people that like is equivalent to Ash's definition, are people that have used existing alternatives or a duct taping solution. And so that's actually so useful because it means that in the beginning, when you're looking for people to acquire, all you have to really look for is the existing alternative that you're trying to replace, and then find users of that thing. Like it makes your marketing so much more precise and targeted, and like much clearer in your mind. Whereas like, oh, this is like my target market, and like, oh, you know, anyone in here works. And then inside them, there are these like different cohorts where like some people care a little bit and some people care a lot. And like, you can tell that there's difference, but you can't really figure out how to bucket them. Like this existing alternative thing is so powerful. Okay, so, and like in the first few months, all your customers are gonna be here, but like in the first few years, maybe all your customers are gonna be this. And you kind of want that. You kind of want to be able to achieve your business model results with just the early adopter segment, because Crossing the Chasm, which is this book by Jeffrey Moore, is like, it's like a huge pain, basically, more or less, to cross over to the mainstream, because you need this word of mouth, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's tough work, and you don't want to, like, it. That shit kind of cripples businesses, like cripples startups over and over. So you want to be able to like get to your goals before you have to cross the chasm, just to increase the probability of success. So you want to solve a problem that's big enough where the early adopter market is also big enough and they're paying enough to make that work. Okay, so if you're gonna get to problem solution fit with these people, you first have to find them, right? And so in Ash's framework, the first step he calls customer problem fit. Basically, can you validate that some group of people have this problem that you're trying to solve and they care about it enough that they're willing to pay you for it, validated through like lots of time spent or money spent on existing alternatives. But I think first, right, and then he recommends like you go talk to people, and then the way that you find these people to talk to is like you like reach out to everyone you know, and then see if like basically you're asking if they use some existing alternative, and if they don't, then you like go a degree out, like, hey, do you have any friends that might be using this, blah blah, and then you're basically using this referral traction channel to find early adopters. And like that works. I've done that before. I've validated ideas through this method. Like basically every person in existence is 6 degrees of freedom away from you, meaning I know someone who knows someone who knows someone 6 times, and then I can get to anyone. I can get to like Donald Trump or whatever, or Obama or whatever side you lean on. So like in theory that should be great. In practice you might have different results. Like, I mean, well, yeah, or maybe I didn't execute well enough. Anyway, point is, so that is one method that you can find people to talk to and find early adopters. You can use that channel to find early adopters. But you're not limited to just that one. You can use any traction channel to find these early adopters. And so there's this book called Traction by Gabe Weinberg, and he basically lists 19 marketing channels that you can use to acquire customers. And it's about acquiring customers for your business, but you can use these same channels to acquire customers to talk to you. And so I call this channel customer fit. Can you find your ideal customer segment on a given channel? And that's the first assumption you're validating. It's like on the business model canvas, it's the channel to customer like link. And like this is where the temporal stuff comes in. And so like if you're gonna sell a demo, if you're gonna sell a pre-order of a demo to your ideal customer, you have to find them first. And to find them, you have to find them on some channel, whether it's like cold approaching people on the street, or running Google ads, or running social ads, or going to offline events or whatever. And like see the book for those 19 channels. Just look up a summary or whatever. And so after you have found these this customer segment, then you're going to validate customer problem fit, which is, do these people have the problem that you're trying to solve? And you're going to like, basically, you're not going to ask them, hey, would you buy this thing? Or like hypothetically what they would do in the future. You're like asking them just about their past, their recent past, what they've been doing. And you're going to infer based on their actions whether they would probably whether the problem that you're thinking of solving is big enough for this person, validated through money they've spent or time they've spent. And okay, so you're doing this through conversation. And the reason why you're doing this through conversation, like you could set up like a survey and like send it to people, or you could set up a landing page, drive traffic, and like hope people fill out the survey and whatever. Like it's just, like the survey is problematic because one, what if like people aren't filling it out? Then you're gonna have to like talk to people anyway to figure out what the fuck is going on. Two, you don't even know what the right questions to ask are. Three, maybe there's a bigger problem you should be solving. You're narrowing the subspace of problems. It's just like in the beginning, when there's more unknown unknowns, you don't want to restrict the space. You want a higher, what's the word? It's like, crap, there's a word. But like, you want like a method of communication where the information transfer is highest. And you get that more from conversation rather than this like restricted form of like a scalable survey or whatever the fuck. And yeah, you could, and so, okay, I'm gonna back up here because I think it's important. So we've established that you should get the problem solution fit, that people are going to pay you or a sufficient number of signups, which you can calculate how much is sufficient before you build the thing. I think like that's clear. Like if you're Levels.io, rather than building a bunch of shit and then driving traffic and stuff is stupid, total waste of time. Just build like freaking 20 landing pages and iterate on the landing pages and see if people sign up. And then if people are signing up at like a pretty good degree, then go ahead and build the thing. Fine. So we've established that's a better method than the Levels.io method. The problem with that method still, where you're just putting out a ton of different landing pages and seeing if you're getting good conversions and then building that thing, is that if you're not getting good conversions and you want to improve that, it's a multivariable problem. There's so many different things you could change. And a more rapid way of getting to the answers that you're looking for is just by talking to people. And so talking to people is so valuable. And like, I just established that a couple minutes ago with the unknown things and uncertainty and stuff like that. So that's why we want to start with conversations. And if you're stubborn and like every first time founder is stubborn, and like, I get it. Like I felt that way too. Like I read this stuff and then I went and said, fuck it, I'm just going to do this other thing. And I was like, fuck, that guy was right. And I get it. You have to experience it yourself. That's fine. Do it. It's fine. But so like you could set up the page, right? And try to get people to sign up. But that assumes that the right people you're looking for are getting there anyway, right? Like you want those early adopters anyway, and you can't really validate that unless you really talk to them. So like, Anyway, so it's like one way you could do it is like you could set up the problem solution fit landing page, and then while it's up, and if the conversion rates are bad, then you go ahead and start talking to people, and then you go through the more formal process. You could do it that way, or you could like skip that first step and go through the formal process, or you could like have it in parallel where you're running Google ads or whatever traction channel to your problem solution fit page, your problem solution fit MVP stuff, your landing page. And then in parallel, you're running the same ads to another landing page, which is to set up a customer conversation where you pay them like $50 or $100 for like $30, and you can adjust that dollar amount based on whether you're getting too much or too little responses. And like you only need to talk to like 10 people, so it doesn't matter if you spend a lot of money because it's not a scalable expense, so it's fine. So like I like that idea is kind of interesting. Like you do this in parallel thing where if your conversion rates on any funnel step is not good, then you reroute, you have a parallel experiment routing to customer conversations. It's not bad. Anyway, so, but just to avoid that waste, which like, even if your first thing succeeds, like there might be a bigger problem you're missing. It's just going to be better if you talk to people. And like, it's really not that expensive, not that time expensive or money expensive to talk to people, and you're going to get a lot of information. Okay, so if you're good on the fact that you should probably talk to people. So first you validate channel customer fit, whether you can find people on a certain channel. So you're driving ads, like you can basically run ads that you would run at equilibrium, like stuff you would run if you were actually selling a product. It lands on a landing page where you basically say, hey, we'd just like to learn about basically how you navigate this something in your space and existing alternatives you use, and we'll pay you X dollars for Y minutes of time. And then there's like a little Calendly link or whatever, Google Calendar link, so that they schedule a thing, and then you give them an Amazon gift card or like money or whatever, and then you talk to people, right? And then so in there, you're validating channel customer fit. Can you find this customer on this channel? 2, you're validating, when you talk to them, customer problem fit. Do these people have a problem big enough worth solving, right? And then those 2 are huge. And like you're in good shape. You're in good shape if you can get to customer problem fit, right? Because one problem is like you can't find the people that you're looking for. Like that happens. That's a thing. And like from business to business, like some assumptions are much harder than others. That sometimes is a problematic assumption. Like they exist, but can you like find them? Okay, so once you get to customer problem fit, then you start working on a demo. And so like you kind of take your learnings from their problems, and then this is where like the founder kind of adds his special sauce in devising a solution. And then you go back to those people and you deliver this demo, and Ash calls it a Mafia offer. He tells you how to construct it. It's a good chapter or section. And so you deliver this demo and you try to collect pre-orders. And if people are not buying, then you can talk to them why, right? Which you wouldn't be able to do on a landing page. And then you iterate on the demo, which is easy, right? Because it's just Figma and it's just mock-ups. Like you can do screenshots, little designs. You can have like a non-working prototype, or you can have a functional prototype. Like don't do the last one, just like just quick stuff, quick iterations. Although with like Cursor and all the AI tools, it's pretty fast to write code. Anyway, so you keep iterating on the demo until you get these pre-orders. And then you want to start in a high touch environment where you can talk to them. And only once you're getting sales, then you convert those learnings to a more scalable method like the landing page. And you try to collect signups, like free trial signups. And like maybe you have like when we get to the business modeling tools, like I'll tell you this stuff, but like the conversion rates across the funnel from like an unaware visitor to revenue is like typically 1%. Like for pretty much every business, like 1 to 4%, something like that. But like right now we're on the orders of magnitude. That's what we care about. So 1%. And then like from customer acquisition to activation, and then activation to revenue is like 10% each roughly. So for you to define a sale from the scalable method, which is the signups, because sometimes it's hard to collect pre-orders from a landing page, right? So an equivalent proxy is signups, but if the conversion rate from signup to purchase is 10%, then you need 10 times as many signups as to qualify as a sale to meet your problem solution fit criteria before you start building. So like there's these little proxies that you can run. So you basically start in this high touch environment where you're more likely to make the sale, like the conversion rates are very high to making a sale. And then once you've really understood like the permutation in the space that makes this thing work, then you translate those learnings to the landing page, and then you get more customers than you can possibly just by talking to people. And then you get to your problem solution fit precise criteria, and then once you're there, then you go build. You spend a month and you build, and then you come back, and then now you're in like lean startup equilibrium, where you're just like you have like a funnel of people coming in, like because you've already validated people are signing up, and then they try your stuff, and if they're not being retained and you have to improve retention, you just keep working on the product until you're there, until you have revenue, until the conversion rates across the funnel are good. And then I have a lot more thoughts on the problem solution fit thing. If you can't sell to a person by talking to them, you're not going to really sell to them through the more scalable low touch method. If you can't even get them to talk to you, okay, so you get past problem solution fit, you get past revenue. So now you're going down along the funnel, and then you basically want to get to the end of the funnel, which is revenue. And in general, the strategy that you're using is once people make it across one funnel step, only once people are getting past one funnel step do you start building the stuff for that next funnel step, and you don't do it until then. So like you can have a landing page that just says, I've already established that. But you're building along the funnel. You're not building subsequent steps until people are getting there. Only when people get to that funnel step do you start building the stuff for that step. So you keep going through that process. You're validating business model assumptions along the way. You're running lean startup scientific method experiments along the way to validate all these things. You're measuring correctly with innovation accounting, the A/B test, cohort analysis, all that stuff. You get to revenue. And so once you're predictably or reliably, repeatably getting to the end of the funnel, then you have now reached repeatability, which is freaking phenomenal, which is unbelievable. So like the first milestone is definitely problem solution fit, but repeatability is like God bless you. So basically you have a flywheel where you can repeatably convert unaware visitors to revenue. It might not be profitable, which is fine, but you get to repeatability. And then from here on out, your job is easy. Your job is freaking easy. Like in the beginning, you're like freaking navigating a maze. Like you're every other day, your business model assumptions are like completely changing. The lean canvas looks different every other day because like you talk to people, like shit is wrong. You like update it, talk to people, shit is wrong. Talk to people, and then like the problem solution fit. You're iterating demos wrong. People don't want to buy it. You iterate, like it sucks, right? It's very experimental, very iterative, very empirical. But then once you get to repeatability, you're in good shape. Because from here on out, all you have to do is just lean startup experiments. All you have to do is read part 2 of the lean startup and do that and nothing but that for the rest of your life. All the way until you're a $1 billion business, the only thing that you're doing are lean startup experiments. Until then, like you're doing this like wiki-wacky kind of, there's lots of stuff. And so there's 2 things that you have to do to go from repeatability to repeatability to profitability. One is you improve the conversion rates across steps along the funnel, which also includes like decreasing cycle time. The second one is increasing CLV, customer lifetime value, basically increasing revenue, how much they're paying, how much customers worth to you. So a combination of those 2 things will get you to profitability, and you're just running lean startup experiments. You're running a bunch of A/B tests. You're You're devising, oh, I think this might work. You try them in experiments. You might talk to people, whatever. You just keep repeating this loop. There's some pivots along the way if you're not getting there, if there's like diminishing returns on the cohort analysis. And so you keep doing that until you get to profitability. And then once you got to profitability, that's amazing. That's like milestone number 3. Right? Remember, like you're in search of a repeatable, profitable, scalable business model. So getting to profitability is huge. And so then once you have profitability, what that means is you have a divergent feedback loop, right? The reason why a business is like a fundamentally better vehicle of like wealth generation than like a job or whatever is because the output of the system is equivalent to the input of the system. Meaning you can funnel back dollars from revenue back to customer acquisition and get a divergent feedback loop that grows exponentially, right? Whereas like if you have a job, like a normal trade time for money job, your input into the system is your time and the output is money, but you can't funnel money back into the input, right? Because you can't buy time currently. You can probably do that in the future when like we can paralyze ourselves and stuff, but you can't do that now. And so you can't create a system with feedback loops. And so in like signals and systems classes that you take in college, we always just study convergent systems, right? Where like where it equilibrates to like it asymptotes to some value, right? But in business, you don't want that. In a business, you want a divergent, and like in those classes, if a system is divergent, we're like, okay, fuck it, we throw it in the garbage, right? In a business, that's what you want. You want a divergent feedback loop, where you want as divergent of a feedback loop as it gets, where the delta between the revenue output and the money input is as wide as possible, because then the rate of growth is faster. And the more you make that bigger and bigger, the more scalable you become, basically. And obviously, like, you could be exhausting traction channels, right? So you're getting into bigger and bigger traction channels. But you're basically trying to make your system as divergent as possible. And so you have repeatability, you have profitability, and then you have scalability with this wide delta divergent feedback loop. And then you're no longer a startup, you become a company and you execute this working business model. But still, well, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna make one addendum to that. This assumes that your engine of growth is the paid engine of growth. So Eric has this chapter on the engines of growth. He lists 3. There's the paid engine of growth, there's the viral engine of growth, and the sticky engine of growth. The sticky engine of growth, I think he's wrong about that. Like, that is not an engine of growth. I think he's completely wrong about that. I think there's only 2. It's the paid engine of growth and the viral engine. The viral engine just means that you're not growing by buying customer acquisition. You're not buying ads, which, like, for every dollar you put into an ad, you generate more than $1 in customer revenue. The other method might be referral, where you bring in users, right? The output of your funnel is like basically users, and those users are bringing in new users. And then tangentially, like, you're getting revenue, or orthogonally, you're getting revenue from these users, but that's not the growth model. The growth model is users recommending additional users. And so, like, that works because the output of the funnel is the same as the input of the funnel, so you can still make a divergent feedback loop. But it's like slightly different. And like, usually the referral engines of growth are like 2-sided business models, like or a marketplace. And like, for your first startup, you probably shouldn't run a 2-sided business model. Like, just do a 1-sided direct business model, just because like you're basically running 2 businesses at the same time, sort of. And it's like a lot harder. Yeah, it's harder. Like, just, you should probably get like probably start with the direct 1-sided business model, just to increase the probability of success. And then if you want to go have some fun, then do it. But fuck, it's cold. Anyway, but like I was saying though, once you get past repeatability, even past up until profitability, past profitability to scalability, past scalability to past being a startup to being a company, you're only doing 3 things. All business activity comes down to 3 things fundamentally. No matter what stage you're in, even if you're like $1 trillion company, there's only 3 things you can fundamentally do past repeatability. 1, increase the volume of users coming into your funnel. 2, increase the conversion rate of steps along the funnel. Or 3, increase the end of the funnel revenue, customer lifetime value at the end of the funnel. And like good frameworks for this are like Russell Brunson and like Alex Hormozi. Like Alex Hormozi, like all of his stuff is just like offshoots of like Russell Brunson, which is like his mentor and stuff. But like he like puts out more volume so people know him more. But basically you want to, okay, I wasn't gonna talk about this, but there's like 3, a good way of thinking about a company is there's like 3 important attributes: value to the customer, the price they pay, and the cost to deliver by the company, right? And so cost to deliver is easy. You want that to be as low as possible, simple. The 2 parameters that you can modify is value provided and price. So let's say value provided is fixed. So let's say cost is down here. Okay, I'm gonna not move. Let's say cost is down here. Value provided is fixed up here. Right, you have price as a knob. Right, you can change your price however you want. If you make it really low, a lot of people are gonna buy because they're getting so much value for such a low price, right? But then your margin is really small. So that's meh, right? Or you can increase price really high. Your margins are fat as fuck, but the value provided compared to price is not that big. So your conversion rate is a little smaller, right? If price is higher than value provided, they're not gonna buy. If it's equal, they're probably still not gonna buy because it's just like not worth going through that transaction. If it's slightly below, maybe. So the conversion rate is dependent on this discrepancy, right? But that assumes that value is fixed and price is variable. What you could do is just increase value, motherfucker, like all the way to the top. And then you can still price way below value so that they're like, oh my God, I'm getting all this value for just this small price. And you have this really high discrepancy between the 2 and the conversion rate is high. But because value is so high, you could still set price so high that you still have fat as fuck margins. And so, so that's like the essence of increasing CLV, customer lifetime value, for that like 3rd way of growing a business. But still, you can increase users entering the funnel, increase conversion rates along the funnel, which is just lean startup experiments. Lean startup experiments are for all this stuff, but basically Eric actually talks about only that. He only talks about improving conversion rates along the funnel in that book, right? I had to read like this other literature to realize to think about this CLV magnification stuff. But that's like a 3rd attribute. And so every business past repeatability is only doing one of those 3 things. There's nothing else, fundamentally. And that's it. That's it. That's basically it. There's like crossing the chasm stuff, but who gives a fuck about that? And then, because you're gonna fucking leave and like live on a boat and do whatever the fuck you want by then. I have like a lot more to say about like the initial steps. Like I think the hardest parts, like we said, like once you're past repeatability, it's smooth sailing. You're just running lean startup experiments, easy money. Until then, it's tough. And I think that's where like most of the value is, and that's the hardest part. Like it gets easier as you go. And so I like more tactical stuff for those steps, and yeah, we're gonna go through them. So like I said, I'm starting another company. I think I'm gonna call it Autonomous Self, and I'll post regularly videos and articles along the way, and just so that like it'll feel like you're an employee in the company, where like you can see what I'm doing. Like I'll show you exactly what I'm doing at each step, and then like there will be like sort of a blueprint for like navigating the stuff with like a real world example, and it'll be like kind of fun to watch like as it goes, and then it'll be like good memento stuff. So the corresponding article that I wrote for this is in the description, but I I talked about way more stuff in this video than I did in that article. So like I said, like they're not going to be one-to-one. Yeah, because I tend to blabber and whatever. But the articles are concise. So if you don't want to like sit with me for an hour and like listen to me ramble about stuff, then the articles will be more concise. But if you just want to have a good time and learn information and like eat lunch while you're listening to a podcast, quote unquote, or an audiobook, like this might be good too. And like, or if you just want to watch YouTube, whatever, I think this will be good. But yeah, articles and books are like definitely higher density per unit time of information than videos, because like I can think, and then I can filter, and then I can like be concise. Whereas here I'm thinking of it on the fly. Obviously it's going to be less dense. Anyway, so yeah, so the next step is business modeling. I'll write an article about business modeling, which, and like from like this is going to be Ash Maurya stuff. I'll show it to you for my specific startup. And then we're gonna tackle channel customer fit. Can we find early adopters through some channel? And then we'll just start validating business model assumptions along the funnel. And then, yeah, see if we can do it. So I will say there's gonna be a lot of periods of depression, right? Startups are a roller coaster. Like I've done like a handful. Startups are a roller coaster. Like every other day you're depressed, and the other days you're like euphoric. You're euphoric because, okay, well, you're depressed because the thing that you thought was going to work that doesn't work, and then you're just fucking depressed, and like there's no hope for you. And the next day you're euphoric because you have a new idea that might work, and then the next day you're depressed again because that shit didn't work, and you're just going to repeat that cycle over and over. And then like shit's not going to go wrong. Like you're going to have all these initial assumptions of like what's going to happen. They're all going to be wrong, and it's just like pure depression for like 3 months or 6 months or more, and it's going to suck fucking balls. But it's also fun. I took like a little retirement period for like 6 months, and like I was doing this thing where every other month or every month I would do a different mission. So I like was whatever. I have thoughts about that, but like I was playing pro pickleball like for a month, and I was playing chess for a month, and I was making music, like producing music for a month. And like as a mission, which is like I have a precise definition for what a mission is, but the thing that I was missing was high dimensional missions, high dimensional spaces. Like a startup is a very large space. Like there's human psychology, there's like product development, like freaking the AWS configurations I was doing in, the fucking tutorials I was reading, and like ChatGPT like debugging these things, right? And then there's product development, there's like fucking design, like refactoring UI is a good book. There's like customer development, there's like startup theory, there's all this stuff I'm talking about. There's like cold approaching people. There's like so many sub-disciplines inside this one discipline of startups. It's such a huge dimensional space, and it's just fun. It's just fun. So that's why I'm starting another company. But yeah, I'm gonna be depressed for sure coming up. But yeah, you'll see it. And if we get through the other side, then yeah, it'll be fun to watch. So okay, well, I hope you learned something. I hope I could be information dense for you. Okay, see you whenever. Bye.